In the hush of rural anonymity, the cult known as the Children of the Azure Dawn emerged as a mystery. Little public record exists of this group, its story buried in fragments and whispers. This is an investigative journey into one of the most obscure cults of the late 20th century, pieced together from survivor testimonies, archived reports, and expert analysis. The narration unfolds with a measured tone, immersing us in a forgotten world that festered in secrecy. From humble beginnings to a dark climax, the Children of the Azure Dawn followed an arc tragically familiar in the annals of cult history. At first glance, it appeared as a beacon of hope for drifters and seekers, offering community, purpose, and the promise of a new spiritual dawn. But behind welcoming smiles lurked darker truths. As cult expert Dr. Margaret Singer once cautioned, groups like these come off very nice at first. They go for vulnerable people who are looking for answers and can get people to believe anything. In this armchair documentary, we delve deep into the hidden reality of the Azure Dawn. We trace its origins in the turbulence of the 1970s, examine its ideology and charismatic leadership, relive key events that marked its rise and fall, and expose the controversies that plagued it from within. Finally, we explore its decline and aftermath, seeking what lessons can be gleaned from its dissolution, if indeed it ever truly dissolved. No sensational reenactments are needed. The facts speak for themselves in quiet, haunting detail. This is a continuous narration, a voiceover peeling back layers of secrecy. The aim is not to exploit tragedy, but to understand how such a cult thrived in the shadows. We proceed now to the beginning, where a vision of an Azure Dawn first captured hearts and set the stage for a saga of devotion and deception. Origins of a hidden cult. In the early 1970s, America was fertile ground for new religious movements. The era's social upheaval left many youths spiritually adrift, open to alternative paths. It was amid this climate that the Children of the Azure Dawn took root. The founder, a charismatic man named Jonas Abraxas, a pseudonym we'll use for this narrative, was a former school teacher turned mystic. Jonas was inspired by the era's Jesus movement and Eastern mysticism alike. A man with a foot in the Bible and a gaze toward the stars. He began modestly, a small Bible study and meditation circle in 1974 held in the living room of his home in Southern California. Like other fringe preachers of the time, Jonas attracted those disenchanted with mainstream religion. He spoke of an imminent Azure Dawn, a metaphor for a coming age of enlightenment that would wash away the corruption of the modern world. According to later accounts, Jonas claimed divine visions in which a sky-blue dawn light, hence Azure Dawn, announced a new kingdom on earth. Word spread among spiritual seekers and disillusioned youth. By 1975, what started as weekly gatherings blossomed into a full-fledged commune. Much like the beginnings of other cultic groups of that period, members flocked to join Jonas's communal lifestyle. They donated their possessions, left behind jobs and families, and moved into a shared compound in the countryside outside San Diego. Jonas preached that society was on the brink of collapse, and only those pure and unified under his guidance would witness the glorious new dawn after the coming tribulations. Early growth and public face. By the late 1970s, the Children of the Azure Dawn had perhaps a few dozen core members, with more on the periphery. The group attempted a veneer of respectability to fund itself and recruit. Emulating tactics of other sects, they opened a small health food restaurant in town, Azure Light Cafe, where members toiled long hours for no wages, only room and board. It was akin to how the 12 Tribes sect ran their Yellow Dealy restaurants in the same era. The cafe served organic fare and pamphlets extolling communal living and spiritual awakening. It became the public face of the reclusive sect, a means to draw in curious souls with free literature and gentle proselytizing over herbal tea. Behind this benign front, however, Jonas Abraxas' authority was solidifying. Early on, he established himself as not just a teacher, but the prophetic voice of God's plan. Former insiders recall how his Bible lectures could last for hours, delivered with hypnotic zeal to rapt audiences of young people hungry for meaning. He told them that the Christian churches had failed, and only a return to an original, unified way of life, as supposedly practiced by the earliest Christians, could prepare the world for the Azure Dawn. This narrative mirrored those of other cult leaders who cast themselves as revivalists or new prophets when mainstream religion failed. Indeed, Jonas's followers came to see him as a modern apostle. His teachings were considered fresh revelations from God, as one ex-member put it. Key early members included individuals from varied backgrounds: runaways escaping broken homes, college dropouts in search of purpose, even some older hippies from the 1960s who had grown skeptical of drugs and free love and were turning to structured spirituality. They were drawn by Jonas's eclectic doctrine and the warmth of communal brotherhood. "We're a family here," Jonas would say in sermons, "children of the coming dawn." In fact, that's where the group's name came from. Each member was told they were a child reborn into the light of the forthcoming Azure Dawn. The rise, faith, ideology, and charismatic leadership. By the early 1980s, the children of the Azure Dawn had grown in number and confidence. They relocated to a larger property in Northern California, a secluded ranch nestled in rolling hills. Here, Jonas envisioned building a self-sufficient haven, safe from the corrupt outside world he frequently demonized. In cult dynamics, this us versus them mentality is a common feature, often causing conflict with wider society. Within the Azure Dawn, Jonas preached that the outside world was irredeemably fallen. Modern government, churches, and media were tools of darkness. Only by cleaving wholly to the group could one remain untainted. This polarizing worldview effectively bound members closer together in isolated devotion. An eclectic doctrine. The ideology of Azure Dawn was an unusual syncretism. Jonas Abraxas blended apocalyptic Christianity with New Age mysticism, a dash of Eastern philosophy, and even science fiction elements. This was not unprecedented. Other cults like the Order of the Solar Temple combined Christianity, New Age ideas, and astrology into their belief system. Jonas similarly cherry-picked concepts. From Christianity, he invoked the Book of Revelation frequently. The Azure Dawn was likened to Christ's millennial reign, a new heaven and earth emerging after a great tribulation. He sometimes hinted that he himself had a Christ-like role, though initially he stopped short of outright saying, "I am Christ." Instead, he used phrases like, "God speaks through me," and that he was the messenger of the dawn. Notably, Jonas claimed divine authority to reinterpret Scripture, often twisting passages to suit his narrative that the group must remain apart and obedient. From Eastern religions, Jonas had studied yoga and meditation, and he incorporated periods of meditation and chanting into group rituals. He spoke of cleansing chakras alongside cleansing sin, a blend of Hindu-Buddhist energy concepts with Christian sin and redemption language. This mix gave the group a unique vocabulary and broadened its appeal to ex-hippies. It parallels groups like the Anne R. Colton Foundation, which mixed Christianity with Eastern religions in that era. New Age and UFO beliefs. Perhaps most strangely, Jonas occasionally referred to cosmic forces and extraterrestrial helpers. He claimed that an interplanetary parliament of enlightened beings was guiding Earth's spiritual evolution, an idea lifted almost verbatim from the Aetherius Society, a 1950s UFO cult whose founder said he channeled alien messages. Jonas told his flock that benevolent entities watched over the children of the Azure Dawn, ready to aid them when the final cataclysm came. While skeptics might find this fantastical, within the cult such claims only enhanced Jonas's mystique as someone in touch with hidden truths. This eclectic doctrine served two purposes. First, it set the Azure Dawn apart as having exclusive knowledge, a truth only they possessed. Jonas insisted that only through him, and thus through the group, could one understand God's full plan. Secondly, it was adaptable. By borrowing various spiritual concepts, he could resonate with people from different religious upbringings. To one recruit, the group seemed like a radical Christian commune. To another, it felt like a New Age ashram. In reality, it was whatever Jonas needed it to be to attract and keep followers. The charismatic leader. At the heart of this growing movement was Jonas Abraxas's magnetic leadership. By all accounts, he was an intense yet charming figure. Mid-30s, piercing blue eyes, and almost literal azure gaze. Soft-spoken in casual moments, but thunderous in the pulpit, he exhibited the classic traits of a charismatic cult leader, authoritarian yet inspirational, benevolent in demeanor, yet brooking no dissent. Former members describe being in awe of Jonas. He had this way of making you feel seen and special, one survivor recounted years later. When he talked about the new dawn, you wanted so badly to believe him. Like Jim Jones of People's Temple, Jonas proclaimed himself a kind of messiah for an evangelist group. By the mid-'80s, he was intimating that he had been chosen by God to prepare his children for the dawn. Some followers began outright worshiping him, calling him Father Jonas. Cultucation. Jonas nurtured an image as infallible and all-wise, a figure who must be obeyed as the sole interpreter of God's will. Cult education. This exhaustion was by design. A tired follower is less likely to resist or question orders. Indeed, Jonas preached that hard work was holy discipline and that fatigue purified the spirit. To the casual observer in those years, the children of the Azure Dawn might have seemed like just another communal religious sect, scarcely distinguishable from the multitude of California spiritual groups. They kept a relatively low profile, and unlike more infamous cults, they hadn't yet made national headlines. But beneath the surface, disturbing practices were taking hold that would later come to light. Daily routine.